Hey everyone, welcome back to another design tutorial in Adobe XD, and today we'll be designing these cool form UI designs, and we will also be adding a little bit of animation to each of these based on what action that needs to be taken place. So there is an error for this and a success for this. So it floats away and the gradient changes. Now that's something you really can't do in Adobe XD by default, but I have a quick workaround, and I also have a quick video if you want to see that as well. All the links will be in the description as always, and let's begin without any further ado. So first of all, let's create just a basic artboard. It doesn't have to be anything sophisticated, just enough to fit in two rectangles. So let's just create the base first for both of these. So let's keep these. The height can be anything that can be adjusted. The width, let's keep it up to 700 for this one, and we'll just copy it over and create the other one as well. Let me just center everything as well. So both of these will be sign up forms, and both of these will be a different kind of design altogether. Now we will make sure that both of these have a 24 pixel border radius. That's it. And the first one will not have no border, and we'll give this a shadow. Okay, so for the shadow, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the X is -12 and the Y is 24 and the blur is 24 as well. And we'll reduce the shadow from 16 to about 10. That's right about it. Now here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna follow a trend here, and there are a lot of designers who are using these kind of flowing designs, and I would like to use that myself as well. So this image that I'm importing, this illustration that I'm importing, is from humans.com. Now I'm not sure if it's pronounced humans or humans, but you know, that's how they call it. So they have a library of free design resources. Another alternative for this would definitely be Undraw. So go ahead and check these free resources out as well. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on this rectangle and duplicate this. So now we have two rectangles, one on top of the other, and I'll make sure that one rectangle is absolutely at the top. Select the image or the illustration as well as the rectangle and say Command-Shift-M to mask it. So Command-Shift-M or Control-Shift-M on Windows. I'm going to make this illustration much smaller. We'll change the dimensions of this illustration based on the button that we're going to keep right here. So the first thing that we'll place is definitely the button, and the button is, I've already saved it as a component. The XD file along with all the resources will be linked in the description so that you guys can go ahead and download it for free. And basically I will ungroup this, and right here inside I want this to have a shadow. So the shadow will be 12 by 24, but I want to do something different. Let's remove this shadow and let's just duplicate this rectangle, this rounded rectangle, and make this, scale this down a little bit, just like this. And place it right behind this as such. Yeah, so only a quarter of this is below this, right? And I want this to be the same color but slightly darker. So as you can see, this is now slightly darker, and I'll check this background blur, and I'll change this background blur to object blur. I want the object blur to be about 25, and the opacity of this whole element should be about 50%. Now as you can see, the shadow is not full width, but it gives this interesting depth effect. You can change where it's placed to reduce or increase the feeling of elevation. We're going to leave it just like that. And here of course we have sign up, and we're just going to group this entire element, so since we're not going to do much with this. Now what I want to do is bring this illustration on top. However, we want one hand to be at the back. What do? I click on the pen tool, and the pen tool can be your friend most of the times if you use it correctly. So I'm just gonna make sure that this is curved just like the button, just like that, and just make a mask like this. So I've created this rectangle which is curved on one edge, and I'll select now what I'll do is I will unselect everything and I'll just select this, make sure that this has a fill so that I know where it is. I'll cut it, and inside this mask where I've placed this image, I'll go to the image and place this above the image, and I'll select the image as well as this rectangle, and I will go to the right panel here, and on top there is something called subtract. So I'll click on this subtract, and as you can see the hand has been subtracted, and as you can see there are some discrepancies, but we will be able to easily change this. Just double tap here and make sure that you can now move it around a little bit as well, or if you can't select it, just go here, and as you can see in the subtraction I have this path which is our mask, and I can press enter and then just keep on editing it just like that. So make sure that it's placed properly now and just define the path, and as you can see this is now more or less perfect. And so we have the sign up button, we have a person holding it, so the base is ready. Now we got to get the text in and the input fields in. So for the text I'll say enter your details, or let's do something a little more friendly. Okay, so in the next step we're simply gonna enter the title, which will be fill in your information. And as you can see I'm not writing this in caps or anything else. I want it to be not too formal. Now what that means is long back we used to use like capital letters for even all caps for like something like sign up, but now that trend has gone. Now we just want it to be a little more casual. We don't want it to seem as if we're shouting at the user or we're trying to force the user to do something. So a little more casual appeal. So 40 by 40, so 40 from the left and 40 from the top. Perfect. And fill in your information, and below this I would like to give like a little subtitle, so as to say, which tells the user that we as a company are just keeping this a secret and all the information will only stay with the company. That's very important in today's day of privacy. So let's type in something like we don't share your information. That's it, and we'll make this the title was 38, but we'll make the title should be about 40 actually, and let's make this about 24, shall we? Yeah. And Cerebri Sans is the font, and let me make this regular and reduce this opacity to 50%. That's it, and make sure this is about 5 pixels from the actual title. Perfect. And below this we will actually be placing all the text fields. So let me show you one text field, and we'll do and I'll fast forward or skip it to the other text fields. So let me show you one text field. The icons that I've taken off for each text field are from a site called feathericons.com, and it's free of cost, it's open source, so you can use it even in your commercial projects. And they have a lot of good, well-designed icons. Again, let me put something here, and the first one will obviously be the user's name. So again, we have this outlined user icon right here, and I want this to be 40 pixels from the subtext here. Let's make this about 60, right? And I want the size of the icon to be 24, so we'll have to manually do this right here. And once we get close to 24, let's just make this slightly more precise. So 24, the height is variable, so it'll be 27 is the height, and let's just leave it just like that. And right next to it, what I'm going to do is place a line. Use the L key to activate the line tool, and I'll just place a line just like this, a straight one. While holding shift, you can just press and drag just like that. And I want this to be 40 pixels from this little guy here. So let me make sure that that's that. And let me have this 40 pixels and make sure that this is even to the latest point, to the nearest point, it is accurate. So 40 pixels here and 40 pixels from this end. And I can check all these dimensions by just holding Option or Alt and just dragging here. And I'll just drag this in a little bit to make sure that this is 40, and this is just 0.5 pixels off. So what I'll do in the width, I'll just say plus 0.5. That's a little trick. You can just add or subtract as well. And as you can see, this is now 39. Let me increase it to -1, make this 40. Perfect. Now we have a perfect line which is based on our dimensions, and let's make this line 2 pixels. And I've already added this color, which is 1A, 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 and I'll reduce this to about 25%, or maybe even less, maybe 10. Perfect. And above this we will have our label, which will say, or a placeholder which will say enter your name or your full name. So a lot of websites, I've seen this, rather than saying your name, they start to say your full name, which for me, it's as a user, it's been super helpful. Reason being that your full name tells me that I need to enter my full name and not just my first name. That helps the company gather a lot more data than it already is. Let me just place this in the center right here, center of this icon that is, and let me group this up. So you have one of these text fields ready. One more thing that I'm about to do is also make sure that this icon is the same color as this. So let me make sure this is 1A, 1A, 1A. The hex, and reduce the opacity to about just the same as this bottom, which is about 10, right? And there you go. So your main focus is on the text here, and these are just there to indicate what we want to enter. And the text, we would like this to be 45% in opacity. We don't want this to be a full black, because again, this is a placeholder, aka a label, and not an actual entered text. The text will be 100% opacity. So we'll just duplicate this and just change the icon for each field. Okay, I've just skipped this whole part, and I've just duplicated these and put them about 50 pixels from each of these. You can have, and I've duplicated them and put them about 40 pixels at a difference of 40 pixels from each of the previous one. And let me just adjust this to make sure that the width is fine. Now that I've placed everything, and these will be basically drop down menus, if you didn't know. And so it'll be an option of your sex, which will be male, female, or others, and date of birth will be DD, MM, YY. And here, in most sites, as you can see, there is something called accept terms and conditions. So for that, we'll create a quick, just a very basic kind of checkbox, which let's keep it 24 by 24, and make this 12 pixels. Okay, that's a little too much. How about 4 pixels on the border radius and 2 pixels on the border size? And let me make this the same black, charcoal black, and make this about 45% in opacity. Perfect. And right next to it, let's place some text which says I accept the terms and conditions. And just for the terms and conditions, I will make this a light blue just to indicate a link for this, and I will underline this as well. On the right, there is this underline option. If I click on that, it'll just underline whatever text I've selected. And I will make sure that this is smaller than this text, which is 24, so about 20 should do it. And this should also be grayed out a little bit. So how about I do 45 on this as well. So now I will just align it to the center of this form, just like that. Perfect. And there you go. Now you have this clean form UI. To prototype this, what we're going to do is duplicate the artboard. And in this artboard, what we're going to do is we're just gonna duplicate each one of these. So just copy all of these and just hold shift and select all of these and duplicate them by just holding option or alt and dragging them out just like that. Make sure that they're the same x-axis, and it can be slightly lower on the y-axis if you want this to be. And what one can do as a solution to making this clearer is to place it somewhere else on a white background. And what I'm going to do here is I'm now going to create rectangles, and the rectangles should be equal to the height and width of these, and they shouldn't be too big. So make sure the rectangles are just like that and set them over each category just like that, and make sure they're equally placed. Perfect. And now what I'm going to do is for each of these groups that we have in here, like group 27, each of these groups, say I have group 28 which is at the top, I'll select the top portion and the one at the bottom and make sure both are selected at the same time and mask this. To do that, we'll say Command Shift M or Control Shift M, and there we go. If I double click, I can select this, and inside here I want this to be a red. So for now, let's just give this a random red. Otherwise, you can just make sure that the red is from the same color palette, and everything should be a solid red, no opacity at all. And just copy this red color over to each one of these. And do these for each one of these categories or each one of these text fields, and we'll go to the next step. Now what I want to do in each one of these masks, I just want them to be lower. And the first one, let's start with the first text field, and I want them to be lower than the boundaries here itself. So let's just place this about this much. Now I'm not saying this should be 100% accurate right now. This you can just get a taste of it and experiment with it. So the first one will be the closest, of course, and the last one will be the farthest. So let's select all of these and make sure they're at different distances from their individual boxes or masks, and make sure they're further away as we go down. So this one will be the second most farthest away or furthest away, and this last one will be the furthest away from the mask itself, just like this. And now we have our masks here. Make sure we just shift this and select all these masks, and just bring these masks back and align them. So I'm just aligning them. As you can see, I'm just pressing the left arrow key and just dragging it while holding shift so that it isn't displaced or anything. And I just want to align it absolutely perfectly with these. So now that it's center aligned, I want to make sure that these boxes are actually in fact aligned. So just to test them out, their alignment and everything else, I want to in this second box, since this is our second one, what I'm going to do is first delete this second one. It's slightly distracting. And here what I want to do is delete the first one. So we're deleting the first artboard, we're not keeping this, and duplicate this one in which we have the masks, and just say Command D to duplicate it. And here what I want to do is, as you can see, our masks are at the top, so just the masks, select the mask. Inside the mask we have these groups, and I will open this mask, say group 33, which is our group in this, and I'll just drag this group till repeat the password. And what I'll be doing is aligning it with this, so aligning it with the lock and everything, so it should be on top as well. Perfect. And I'll do the same for all of these. Just select the mask from the left panel here, open these masks, and inside these masks you'll have the groups, and just drag them and put these red groups on top of each of these. Just align them perfectly. Everything placed in. Let's place this help text above the sign up button. Make sure this is centered as well. And now let's go ahead and prototype this. So here, if I click on sign up, I just wanted to just drag the arrow to the second artboard. Make sure it has tap trigger on, auto animate is on, and ease in out, we're going to use ease in out, and let's make this 0.7 seconds and just click on this, preview this, and let's click on sign up. And as you can see, each of these text fields come at a different point of time, and that is exactly what I had done in the original design as well. And as you can see, just refining it more can make it slightly more smoother as well. But this is pretty good, and we've achieved this in a very short amount of time. So let's move on to the next design. So for this design, we will just pick up this as a template and place it right next to it. And we're gonna use this as a base. So first of all, let's remove this image, of course, and this sign up button as well. Everything else will be the same except the text. So rather than saying fill in your information, I want this to be a little more friendly. Let's change it to introduce yourself. Using a friendly text like this, friendly copy, can really help your designs out tremendously. So introduce yourself, and we'll say, rather than saying we don't share your information, we can say we keep your information private, just to give them a little bit of justification for why you need this information. And everything else will remain the same. The background shall change now. Let's remove the shadow of this background, and I will give this purplish gradient that I've already saved here in the XD file, by the way, which will be linked in the description, so go ahead and download it. And I'll just reverse the gradient just as by dragging it like so. And I want everything here to be white, so let's just convert everything from this black to white. And even the text field, everything should be white and opaque now, since the visibility should be our prime concern. And make sure that the underlines or the actual fields are also 50% in opacity, not 100. And perfect. And the icons, all of these icons should be white and opaque. So one more touch that we will add to these is I will create an ellipse right here, and I will make this ellipse the same light purple color that we have at the bottom. So just pick it up from the color picker and make this 50% in opacity, just like that. And just put this at the back. And this is just an artist's touch. It doesn't have to, it's not compulsory, it's not something that improves the user experience. It's just for the sake of the design. And I'll cut this out from the group and put this in the center of the circle as well. And make sure it's the center. Perfect. And let's group all of these together and make sure that the text and the label are 20 pixels from the left rather than our usual 40. And we'll do the same exact thing for all of these texts and everything else as well. Now that we have all these icons placed perfectly, I've also made these icons solid white so that they're a little more visible on this purple gradient color. And I have everything else in line. Let me just put this I accept and read the terms in line as well. And here what I'm going to do is create an ellipse at the bottom for the done icon, so to say. Make sure this is 40 pixels from the bottom as usual, and 40 pixels from the right as well. And now that we have this, I'll remove the border, and I have this green color, which is actually a complementary color. And for those people asking me what color tool I use, so I use color wheel, which is if you search for it, you'll get the first result as canva.com's color wheel, which I use. And if I place this color in here, I can see the complementary color. So if there was the purple, I would be able to see the lime green, which is this one. That is how I sometimes choose my colors. And I'll just drag and drop the check mark icon here just to say it's done. And I'll make this about 25 pixels in width, and just place it at the center just like that, and make sure that the width of the border is about 3, so it's not a weak icon or anything. And just group these together. One more touch I'll add to the button is go to shadow and make sure that the shadow is the same as the lime green and a 50% opacity. And I'll make this 12 by 24, so 12 on the y-axis and 24 on the blur. And see how this button really stands out and makes you want to click it again as a submit button, of course. And now for the design part of this. So I'll use the pen tool and create a little hill. I want to create a little hill at the background. And a lot of these elements are these days in demand in a lot of design needs, and they're also trendy. So again, we don't want to follow all the trends, but the good ones, let's just follow them and make them at a certain 40-degree angle from the left. And the bottom one, this darker color should actually be less in opacity, so about 50% in opacity, just like that. And I want to just duplicate this and edit this one just to be like this, a little more flat and towards the left. Just make this lower, just like that. Perfect. And I want this to have a background, to have an object blur of about I don't know, 2 or maybe 4, and reduce the opacity to about 50%, and place this right here. And I want to group these and create a rectangle mask around these, which has, again, the border radius should be the same, 24, as the actual background. And select both of these and say Command Shift M or Control Shift M to mask them, and see how they've been placed. Make sure that they are placed behind all these other elements as well. And as you can see, now I have these mountain or hill looking like objects, which really add the oomph to our design. Now, to add an extra oomph to our design, we will have to add a custom gradient. To add that, let's create a medium-sized ellipse, no specific size in mind. And I have saved this other gradient, which is lime green at the bottom and the same purple gradient at the top. And as you can see, this gradient is such and such. So in the middle, and the left one is purple and the right one is the same lime green that we've used here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the background, the absolute background, which is rectangle 26, and select this ellipse at the same time as well. Again, the ellipse should be inside here to select both of these together. And now if I have both of these selected, on the right hand side on the top, I have this add option, and I will add both of these together. And one more thing that I'll need to do is actually reapply this gradient and make sure that this gradient is now upside down, just like this. So as you can see, whatever changes I'm making to the bottom circle is actually coming out to be in the upper circle, in the upper element as well. So this green, wow, look how that appears from in the middle of the mountains. That's pretty dope. And again, I have a tutorial on this technique that I'm using on my channel, so I'll link everything in the description. And I want this circle to be really out the frame. Perfect. Now comes the easy part, which is prototyping. So Command D or Control D to duplicate this. Make sure they're placed side by side, just like that. And make sure in this, what I want to do is hide all of these. To do that, I will basically select all of these, and even this, I have read the terms condition, and say Command comma or Control comma for Windows. And as you can see, everything is now hidden. And even the text we will be hiding. So Command comma, perfect. And also we will be moving these mountain-like things down, and make sure this is opacity is 0 as well. And we will make another artboard, so a total of 3 artboards for this effect. And in the third artboard, what I'm going to do is select this and double click on this circle at the bottom. So the background will now magically change from that boring purple to this amazing green as I move the circle above. But the problem is, if I keep the circle like this, it'll appear on the screen to move from the bottom to the top. So make sure that the effect happens. We'll have to place it diagonally, just as so. Perfect. So not too high, just enough to fill in this with the screen. And in the middle, I want to place a text which says sign in, or in this case, sign up successful. And you can place whatever you want here, any text which tells the user that the sign in was successful, or you can even put in something like we've sent you an email for confirmation, or something along those lines. And what I'll do is copy this and put this in the middle one here. Place this slightly towards the bottom or a lot towards the bottom and hide this. So to do that, I'll say Control, comma, Command, comma again. And I will prototype this now. I'll click on this green icon, bring this arrow to the second artboard, which is essentially empty. And I'll say tap, auto animate, ease in out. I'll say ease out for this one and say 0.2 seconds because we want all the other animation which doesn't really make much difference to happen quickly. And the second artboard, I'll just select the artboard by clicking on the name and drag the arrow to the third artboard. Rather than saying tap, I'll say time, and I'll say delay of 0 seconds, so no delay, and ease in out 0.8 seconds. Or you can even give a little more, so 1.5 as well. So let's start this and check this out. If I click on this arrow, see how everything fades away, and there you go. Isn't that even more beautiful than an actual design that we created? And it obviously tells the user on the spot that the sign up was successful, or you can give any message that you like as well. I hope you like that video. I post every Monday and Thursday. I have actually a new Patreon account. So if you want to support this channel, you can just pay $5 a month and you can support this channel to grow to the next level and reach the next 10,000 subscribers. I'll see you in the next video. Keep watching. God bless.